Buenas tardes. I think we're ready. Almost everybody is sitting with their food, and so I think we're ready to... louder? Louder. Okay. Can you hear me now? Good. So, buenos días. Buenas tardes. I'm so happy to be here and introduce the panel. As you know, this is a continuation from the conversation this morning. Now Rosalie's in the room. Rosalie, say hello. Let's thank her for all this spread that you have. Right? She puts all this together. Our events are really, first quality, and we owe that to dedicated staff, and Rosalie heads that effort. So it's my pleasure to thank her for all this work. The panel needs a little introduction to those at Hunter. We know them for all the hard work that they do with the different schools and from the provost's office. Their bios, the detailed bios, is in your packet, so I'm not going to say too much about that. The panel, the logic of the panel is that they were sitting, the deans were sitting in the conversations, and they heard the various points of view. Some of them actually participated quite actively in the conversations, and so you already know a little bit about where they're coming from, and that's great. But now I think their role is slightly different. Now we want them to respond from the dean's chair, a very difficult position leadership position that they hold in the college, what they think can be done, what would it take, and then the provost will react to that. Some things will be more feasible than others. We want a lot of things. We cannot have a lot of things. We can have few things, and that's part of the conversation that we need to have. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Dean Cheryl Graves, who from the School of Education is going to speak first, and then Dean Jackie Montrose from the School of Social Work will continue, and Associate Dean Susan Klitzman will wrap up the presentation from the Dean, and our very own Provost Vida Rabinowitz is going to then react to what they present. They can come to the podium, or they can speak from the table, whatever you prefer. I really would not like to let go the opportunity to thank the provost for all her support to this initiative. She's been really open-minded about what Central can and cannot do. She has given all the support. I haven't heard the word no yet in all the things that I asked, except for one. And I think I deserve that. But in any case, it's my pleasure to let you with this very distinguished panel.
I'm going to stand up because you can probably see me. If I sit, you probably can't. I want to thank Dr. Carrillo for his opening framework. It makes this job of trying to say how this might work at Hunter College, and particularly in the School of Education, easier. You've given me a framework that I will refer to, and I thank you very much for that. So one of the things that I'd like to start out with is thinking it from a School of Education perspective. I thought that his enunciation of both the principles of cultural competence as well as the domains of cultural competence for me were vital, because I think sometimes within the field of education we don't take a holistic perspective, and so in that list of domains we tend to focus, I will for the sake of argument say, probably more at the level of communication, but even not necessarily in very specific skill-based ways. So I think that the framework that he presents us with will challenge us to look at other domains. So I will take the one of leadership. And since I've had this opportunity this year to be the acting dean of the School of Education, I can tell you that there have been opportunities presented to me at a leadership level that I would not have necessarily expected. So, for example, the provost provided us with some, provost didn't provide it, but through the provost came some tuition waivers for graduate students. And my thought just my thought, was, oh, gee, we have a daytime cohort of students who come full-time. This is typically not what happens in teacher preparation at the graduate level. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to diversify that cohort? Because in order to come to the daytime cohort full-time, you don't need to work, or you don't need to work during the daytime. And so the cohort has a particular set of socio-demographic characteristics, and I thought it would be nice to diversify it. So I thought, oh, this is easy. Let's use these tuition waivers for this purpose. I gave it to someone who I thought was perfectly competent to do so, and yet when it came back to me, it was so clear that the normal strategies used for distribution of scholarship money didn't allow for my vision, and people just didn't have a clue about how to go about it. So now I can see that if I want this vision to take place, I have to actually sit down, suggest from my other life experiences how it is that one might enlarge the pool of people eligible to participate in the daytime cohort, and then actually provide people who might need money with some money to participate. But it was just one of those instances in which you can have a good idea, as Dr. Carrillo mentions. You can give it to people that you think are perfectly competent to technically discharge the task, but because they lack a certain level of knowledge and understanding about how you would seek out and recruit and identify and include people who don't just arrive at the door normally, it takes more than just the idea. It takes sitting down and working on the leadership or working out the details. So I think leadership at many different levels within the educational arena are places where the role of cultural competency and the implementation of it really have to be addressed. A diverse workforce, I'm happy to say that I'm in a school in which the workforce of the School of Education, I usually tell the Dean for the Diversity that he needs to put his efforts elsewhere and not bother us, but that's not his job. So he bothers all of us. But we have a very diverse workforce. We strive very actively to keep our workforce diverse. It goes up and down, but we look a lot more diverse than most other departments in the school, in the college, and certainly more diverse than many schools of education that I know about. So I think we do a good job there. I think from our discussion, one of the things that kept coming up again and again, I think fits into the integration into the system ideas. So people talked about we don't necessarily tap into the resources of community-based organizations that support the life experiences of diverse students that our teachers are going to work with, and that we need to do a better job in teacher preparation and administrative preparation to take advantages of that cultural knowledge and experience that exists right next door to the school building, but that teachers don't necessarily know about and have not necessarily been taught to value. So I think that's an element that we could incorporate in thinking about integrating these kinds of ideas into the systems that surround schools and educators. Another one that I really liked was I really liked Dr. Carrillo's patient care model. And so I'm going to dedicate myself to thinking about how can we take such an idea and really start to put in place all of the pieces that you need to prepare a diverse student body, meaning children in the city of New York, to meet the expectations for them of education. And working back from that goal, while Dr. Carrillo might have health outcomes as his goals, we have to have achievement outcomes as our goals for our students, and then work back through that to say, what does teacher preparation have to do to make sure that their students can achieve? And we know from research in our field that having students who feel that their teachers know them, and this is particularly true for Latino and African American students, and they will say things like, "She knows my name." You know, you would think, oh, this is a simple thing, a teacher should know your name. Not always. And know your name and not confuse you with the other kid who's the Mexican American kid in the class, and she calls you both by the same name. Know your name, know something about my family, know something about me. Students are very clear about what culturally responsive teaching is, which is sometimes called in our field, what it feels like, what it looks like. And so that's something that we would have to work back. That's associated with higher outcomes for students, higher achievement outcomes for students. So it's not as if we can't situate this very clearly with achievement, but as one of our colleagues pointed out, we have to reframe it for teacher educators, teacher candidates, and teachers, that these skills that we are talking about are not soft, they're not nice, they're vital to the things that teachers are going to be being held accountable for right now. So that, I think, would fit into a new model, if you will, sort of analogous to the model of cross-cultural patient care that Dr. Carrillo provided for us this morning. So I'm thinking about, I've got 3 redesigns going on right now, curriculum redesigns, and I am already thinking about how I can bring this back, and because they're not all finished, I can gently encourage them to think about these issues. Well, you know, I do have a gentle side. Some of my colleagues are making faces. And then last but not least, I want to thank, again, the notion of data collection. I believe in data collection. I believe in research. I'm not naive. I know that there's lots of research in the field of education that policymakers routinely ignore. They just find the research that fits the policies that they want to produce. I understand that. But on the other hand, it makes it harder and harder for them if there's more and more research that really supports what how teacher education can make a difference in the preparation of teachers. Right now, as a profession of teacher educators, we're under attack because everybody went to school, everybody knows that being more efficient is the best way to go, so why bother to go through these programs that have standards and requirements? You know, you were smart, you have a degree, go teach. You know, doesn't that make sense? That makes sense to lots of people. A smart person, put them in front of a classroom, teach. As teacher educators, if we think cultural competence is important, if we think it's important in the preparation of teachers, we can't just keep talking about it. We've got to collect the data on what we do and align it with the outcomes of our teacher candidates in terms of their teaching skills and then in the outcomes of the students that they prepare. I think there's sort of 4 little things that I think we really need to focus on with our teachers around issues of cultural competence, culturally responsive teaching, and diversity. Control what you can, because teachers will immediately tell you, oh, they live in the projects, there are 3 people in the bed, there's no father at home, they had burritos for breakfast. You know, I teach a course in Ed Psych. If I ask them what are the variables that affect outcomes for children, they list 99 things, none of which teachers can control. It is usually the rare person who gives me one thing that a teacher can control. So we need to encourage our teachers to think about things that they can control. Second thing we need to teach them is to suspend judgment. Because, of course, we all have these ideas floating around in our head. We're members of this culture, and it bombards us with all kinds of ideas, most of which are not positive about people, most of which focus on their negatives. So you need to be able to suspend judgment first, because you can't make any change if you can't stop yourself. Third, you need to have asset-based thinking. What about this parent who's screaming and yelling at you at this moment is positive? The parent cares about their child. They may not do it in the way you think they should do it, but you have to have asset-based thinking. What is it about this kid who's falling off the chair, who only wants your attention? Can you think of it in an asset-based way rather than a deficit-based way? And then finally, maintain high expectations for your students. Probably one of the biggest crimes against Latino and African American students in particular in this city is people look at them and think, just can't do it, not going to make it. Oh, I know there's one. I know so-and-so who made it. You know, it's like the Obama effect. He did it, but after all, he grew up in Hawaii, went to Indonesia, you know, not normal. So he did it. But everybody has the capacity to learn, and that's what our business is. So cultural competence for me, I'm going to try to figure out ways to take these what I think are real principles that we can have our teachers write on a card, along with some of the cards that other people have there, and they can stop themselves, and this just might make a difference. Thank you very much.
That was good, Cheryl.
Thank you, Jackie.
That was really good. I'd like to start by welcoming all of you here to the School of Social Work. I usually say how wonderful it is to be in a public institution, a public building, and I usually say, mi casa, su casa. So today, I'd like to thank you particularly for bringing the food that matches the speech I usually give. I'd also like to thank my wonderful faculty who are in the room. Could you acknowledge yourself? They are really the experts in this area. No, quite more than I do, and Tony as well. And also our wonderful students who spent the morning rewriting our curriculum and our class, and just fabulous. We love you. I am going to make rather modest comments, I think. I was thinking a lot, oh, there's one more person. Is Rosa still here? Is Rosa Gill still here? Oh, I wanted to acknowledge her. She and I started teaching together in 1980, and so she's really been one of my mentors over the years, so I especially liked having her here this morning. I was thinking a lot this morning about my aha moment when I first got to know the work of Cornel West, who wrote Race Matters, and how that sort of startled me into understanding that it always matters in every case all the time. And I was thinking this morning that now we know culture matters always in every case every time. And that has then changed the way we think about social work practice. There was a lot of discussion this morning, and I know my faculty mentors, my clinical faculty mentors, Manny and Sam and Pat are in the room, and Yolanda as well. There was a lot of discussion this morning about talking about how culture matters in clinical contexts. The way one does engagement, the way one does assessment, even the services themselves. I know Manny has talked a lot about social networks and using them as a way of really valuing the culture. And then it was also mentioned the importance of culture in management. And I wanted to spend just a few moments on that because, like Cheryl, my days are really consumed with management. Which is why I like being here so much, because it's actually intellectually stimulating. I think that as in the management of social service organizations, in the organizational administration, one has to remember that no matter how much we wish it were otherwise, we really do represent the dominant culture. Just by having a separate office and a big desk and whatever else. And one spends one's career, at best, in trying to minimize the intensity of that dominant culture on one's workforce, on one's clients, on one's neighborhoods, etc. And that's about as good as we get, is to realize that we are in that position whether we like it or not. And to understand the importance of the intersection between oppression and culture, and always make that sort of our overall thought process in management, that as we move ahead, that we've got to look at that. I think I like a lot Resnikow's work on cultural competence, where he talks about the difference between surface structural competence and deep structure competence. So, you know, we could do a lot of things that would sort of make it seem like we're culturally competent, like we could have the Spanish department in the building, or hang pictures at the day of, or February, the African American month, or whatever. But if we're really going to take this seriously, we've got to change who we are. We've got to understand ourselves as the other. We've got to make sure that when we do have faculty lines or tuition or any kind of small goodies that we get, and there ain't that many lately, that there's a group of people that we really need to have at the front of our thinking and the closest to our heart beyond all the other needs. And there are many. There's much in competition for what we do at all times. Every day. There are many people at our door with their hands out and needs unmet, and etc. So you really do have to pay attention to those things. I think that there was a lot of discussion in our group about whether you separate a course or whether you infuse it. I think that, Cheryl, you'll tell me if I'm wrong. She will tell me if I'm wrong, too, right? She will. But I think that educators have found that when knowledge is layered over time, when it's introduced and then reinforced and then built on top of and then elaborated and viewed in different contexts, the learning is the best. Is that right? Absolutely. So whether we ultimately go for a course aside or keep layering, which is what I think we do at this school, we need to make sure that the learning is reinforced, that it grows over time, that it's elaborated in different contexts, etc. So I heard a lot of terrific ideas today about social services and how we can increase our responsiveness to people. I like best, Tony, I didn't hear the name of the poet. Could you? And wrote this poem about the smells of the cooking. Is that right, Tony?
That was one of the lines.
And I can only assume it's a person in a dominant culture who no longer smells the cooking of their childhood. And some of you can take a breath right now. You can smell the cooking of your childhood, right? The phrase, the cooking, the smells of the cooking, right? That to me was a wonderful analogy, and I really thank you for it, Tony, because I like to think in this school that the smells of the cooking are not just in the cafeteria, but are through our halls and in our offices and in our classrooms and in the and wherever a Hunter graduate goes, there are the smells of the cooking. I want us never to stop cooking because, as I said in our little group, when the cooking stops, the smells stop. And oftentimes, if it's fish, it starts to stink. So, or that's the commercials would teach you that, right? But so I thank you, Edwin and Centro, for bringing the smells even closer to us today, and I hope we will all continue to cook.
Good afternoon, everybody. And now for public health. My name's Susan Klitzman. I'm the Acting Associate Dean for Academic Affairs for the CUNY School of Public Health at Hunter College, which is a consortium that includes the public health programs across CUNY at Hunter, Brooklyn, Lehman, and the Graduate Center. And we're just so delighted to be part of this effort. I'm here today on behalf of the school and on behalf of our founding dean, Ken Olden, who regrettably could not be here today, but I know that this is an issue that is near and dear to his heart. Our school has a focus on urban health with a real commitment to research and service and education and training the next generation of public health professionals who can address the problems that urban populations face and make cities healthier places. And we're really trying to narrow our work, well, not narrow, but focus our work on 3 areas: health equity and disparity, chronic disease, and population aging. And so I think it's just a natural that all of the things that we're talking about today fit in with that agenda. I also want to acknowledge my dear colleague, Diana Romero, who has really spearheaded the public health efforts in this area, and her colleague, Andrea Skornick, a recent graduate of our program. So they really deserve a lot of your appreciation, because they've really brought this issue to the forefront of our curriculum. Already in public health, the issue of cultural competency is something that is very important to us. It's recognized nationally as a competency that all of our graduates must develop. We do include it in our curriculum, but just as the comments in the discussion in our group today emphasize that culture is dynamic, learning is dynamic, and we can't afford to rest on our laurels. With all of the changes that we face in the world, with the changing demographic patterns, with the changing disease patterns, it's not enough to rest on what we've known in the past. We have to always be open to new ideas and new trends. So in my role as Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, I do have responsibility for the public health curriculum, and that's why I very much appreciated the opportunity to be part of the public health discussion group this morning on cultural competency. And, you know, quite frankly, the openness with which my colleagues express their opinions about what we're doing and what we could do better. And I want to focus some of those suggestions, which I really take to heart, because I think they come from people who have tremendous dedication, knowledge, and experience in 2 areas. And that's in the areas of assessment and intervention. In the area of assessment, we identified several levels at which we need to do better. One area is self. Giving our students the ability to diagnose themselves, to become aware of their cultural background, their cultural experiences, their cultural experiences that shape the way they view the world, and in that awareness of self, understanding the concept of other, similar and different. So diagnosis, awareness of self. The second area is community diagnosis. Public health is focused on populations, on understanding the dynamics of populations, on the things that make populations healthy and put us at risk for disease. So community diagnosis and assessment is very important. And in that vein, our group discussed that you need a multi-method, multi-source strategy. You can't just go to a book or the internet and collect data to understand communities. But that's important. That is a piece of information. But to really understand a community's needs, you have to go out and speak to people. You have to identify, you have to immerse yourself in that community, identify key informants, identify key organizations. And no one strategy and no one method is going to give you all the answers. And so you need a team. You need a team that both recognizes and respects the validity of different ways of knowing and different points of view. So assessment. And the third area of assessment that we talked about was assessing ourselves at Hunter. It's not enough to say we have a curriculum in cultural competency. We have to reiterate what Cheryl was saying, we have to be able to look at ourselves and say, what is it that we're trying to accomplish and how are we doing? And so we also talked about this morning being able to ask the questions, asking the hard questions, not being afraid to ask questions because you're embarrassed or it's a difficult area. In order to get to the next level of cultural competence, we have to ask. And all of these things apply to interventions as well. Individual, community, ourselves at Hunter. And in this vein, I think that we need to recognize the experiences of our students and validate them more in the classroom. In public health, the vast majority of our students who are here seeking degrees work full-time. They work in a wide range of areas with a wide range of communities, and every time we go around the room and ask people what they're working on and what issues they feel passionate about, we have a laundry list that no professor on his own or her own could possibly understand or generate. And so we always say, but we really need to validate that at Hunter, one of our greatest resources is our students. So those are just some thoughts about areas that I think we can do better in the curriculum. Fortunately, in public health, like some of the applied professional fields, all of our students are required to do structured field work as part of their degree, to bring their classroom and practical experiences together to reflect on them, so we need to continue that. The last thing I'll say is that about the future. We feel very fortunate in the CUNY School of Public Health that we'll be moving very soon with our colleagues in social work and part of the research library of Centro to a brand new building in East Harlem. And I just feel so delighted and optimistic that this is really going to give us a wonderful opportunity to continue the dialogue, to work together, to be close together, and to really generate training and service and research activities and work with the community to achieve some of the things that we're beginning to discuss today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vita Rabinowitz, Hunter's provost. And I have to tell you, and I think you can guess what a privilege it is to work with these deans. Can we get a round of applause? It's actually fun working with these folks whom I talk to almost every day, and it makes it easier to get up in the morning. As if we needed any fresh evidence of the importance of this initiative, we have the events over the past few weeks of the events in Arizona, the changes in laws, the threat to area studies, and to the very notion of the importance of a construct like cultural competence. I am a psychologist, a social psychologist by training, and when I did research, it's long ago, it was on women and achievement, where unquestionably one of the conclusions was that gender matters enormously for women trying to achieve in the sciences. And of course, there is no one woman, no one man. Women only come in different ethnicities with different backgrounds, different experiences, or of different ages. So gender matters and culture matters. And they matter so dramatically we can barely see it and confront it honestly. I am willing to venture that no professional schools do a better job of producing culturally competent citizens than Hunter's, and for a variety of reasons. We have an exceptionally diverse student body, and one, as several of the deans mentioned, that changes demographically, regularly. So we are constantly renewed every few years, different waves of immigrants, different waves of populations. We have an exceptionally diverse faculty. Our faculty is not as diverse as our student body, but compared to national averages, we are remarkably diverse. Last year, which was a good year for hiring, this year will not be, as you can well imagine, but last year, of the 48 faculty we hired, fully half were from underrepresented groups. And that was a great source of pride to us at Hunter College, because this is deeply who we are. Still, and while it's extremely important, and research suggests that it's important for our students to see that their faculty are diverse, so that they can see that even if they don't see faculty exactly like them, if they can see that there is a place in the professoriate for diverse people, we know that it is inspirational. And so it's important to us on moral grounds, but also, but on other grounds as well, to have that diverse professoriate. But we must never forget that our commitment to diversity doesn't stop with a diverse student body, or a diverse professoriate, or a diverse staff. And the relationship between diversity and cultural competence is I think, is an important one. As a provost, in my best moments and when there were resources, my job is to take the good ideas that are fed to me and try to make them happen. The deans come to me all of the time with wonderful ideas. Edwin Melendez has come to me with wonderful ideas, and when he talked about the Cultural Competency Initiative, it's one that I fully wanted to embrace. It's one that I know our professional schools are already involved in, but I would like this initiative to affect the entire college. What could a Cultural Competency Initiative college-wide look like at Hunter College? Well, for one thing, it involves, because it is such a big idea and such an important idea, so true to our mission and to our future, I think that the undergraduate experience needs to change as well as the professional school experience. I believe that we need faculty development initiatives so that our faculty can become more culturally competent in how they deal with their colleagues, with their students, and with the outside world as they make more and more external collaborations. Staff development in cultural competency is something I'm looking to you for as well, advice there. Curricular development starting with general education right through the major and interdisciplinary studies, and of course in the professional schools. Those are initiatives that I'm interested in hearing more about and interested in hearing from you. I'd like to reflect a little bit on what each of the deans said, because as usual they are outstanding. From the School of Education, from Dean Graves, we heard a commitment bred in the bone to diversity and cultural competence. And the School of Education lives this, I am delighted to say, lives it every day. Dean Graves talked about the difficulties and the challenges of recruiting students, faculty, and staff with cultural competence. And this is something we need to talk about. As provost, some of the most important things I do are hiring faculty, hiring deans. It's vitally important that we hire leaders who are committed to these values. Okay, because it really does start from we have the student body, but we need the leadership. Cheryl talked about the importance of cultural competence in management, which means knowing how to deal effectively with different kinds of people and knowing how to inspire faculty and students to embrace these values. From Dean Montrose, we heard about the importance of examining ourselves and recognizing how many of us as representatives of the dominant culture, no matter how we might not want to think of ourselves that way, that's how many of our students and faculty see us, how we need to reflect on that, examine ourselves with an eye to learning and changing. I think it is vital to recognize areas where we are privileged areas where our lack of understanding, our predispositions, our experience are not serving us well in dealing more effectively with people. I always think if we're teaching our students to thrive and lead in a changing world, and we are not modeling that behavior and fostering it, we're kidding ourselves about our achievement. From Associate Dean Klitzman, who also talked about the importance of assessment starting with ourselves. I think a critical idea was the idea of working collaboratively in teams to be most effective. None of us, we are all works in progress, and none of us can be all things to all people. But one of the ways we can strengthen ourselves and we can gather the skills and competencies we need is to reach out and make partnerships with people who are doing good things. I see collaboration as the key to the future in Hunter College, collaborating among ourselves and with external partners. And this is something that I would hope the Provost's office would, could help facilitate. Again, I see the leadership of Hunter College that our commitment has to be to facilitate the best ideas that you have. I am thrilled to have the partners I have, Edwin, Cheryl, Jackie, Susan, and other colleagues who couldn't be here today. Our professional schools and the Centro, I believe, show us the way. But the whole college needs to follow. So one of the things I hope is we can talk more about how work in the professions and how the challenges that professionals face can shape the undergraduate curriculum at Hunter College. We should seek to be a national model for this. We've got the people, we've got the ideas, we've got the mission, and we should seek nothing less than that. So I thank you.
I think we have about 10, 15 minutes to ask a couple of questions. If I may, there was a portable microphone somewhere.
Here.
Okay. This is my Phil Donahue impersonation. So,
Oh, Phil Donahue. Nobody in this room remembers.
you have to turn it on. What's wrong with this?
Vaguely Oprah.
Oprah. Okay. Oprah, I'm on. So anyway, we have time for a couple of reactions. We really think this was a wonderful panel. More than exceeded my expectations for the day. Very well rounded up. They didn't get down to the minutia, but they did actually did a good job.
Thank you.
So now let's see if the audience can spark this up a little bit. I cannot believe that all these faculty in the room are wordless. What? Okay. No, wait, por favor. Okay, great.
Just wanted to ask the provost and the deans how you see this work aligning or tying in to the process within the college of curriculum change, which is to say the department, curriculum committees, faculty senate.
You're going to have to share this, or you're going to have to share this. By the way, just one window here. All the copies for Emilio Carrillo's presentation are out there in the table. Pick it up before you leave. Okay, sure.
Yes. As I mentioned, my school is in the process right now of doing curriculum redesigns on 3 programs. One of the programs is represented here, and a couple of my people from one of the redesigns are also here. So we're in the middle of the process of trying to improve the outcomes in 3 programs, and certainly we're at the point of, it's not that cultural competence and issues of diversity have not been mentioned, but I think, as I said, I think the framework that we've been given today, we can go back and it's going to require people to think in perhaps a more comprehensive and more expansive way. We always have the arguments, is it a separate course? Is it infused? Well, in some programs it's a separate and infused, in some it's only infused, in some it's, who knows what. But I think the issue is we don't always have the data that tells us whether the separate or the infused or the layered works. And I think this is also an opportunity with these new redesigns, which right now are faculty panels outside of, they're not official. They're faculty panels of people who are engaged in the redesign process. We can infuse things into our redesigns that will make cultural competence much clearer. They will then have to sell that at their respective departments. And that will be the part of the thinking about how do you sell this at the department level. I think selling it at the School of Ed curriculum committee level will be less problematic because you will have allies from other departments at that level. But there is this task of like-minded people who are already on the, on the bandwagon will also have to strategize about how do you sell it through the layers of the curriculum committees. If we get it through the School of Education, I don't think we have any problems outside of it. But that is a struggle at times within any academic set of people.
This year we spent the entire year on our reaccreditation sub-study, which will be reviewed at the commission in June. So, light your novenas. The major excitement about that is now we can really look at curriculum change. And I'm just thrilled. I've had lots of conversations with our clinical practice people about the changes that are being thought about there that are just thrilling. And maybe you convince your other methods colleagues to think about some things as well. So I think we're on the cusp of really new curriculum in a very, very great way. I think there are two other things we need to do. One is we need to think about the structures of our curriculum. It isn't just about content, it's about the structures. Because if you don't offer evening and you don't offer Saturday and you don't offer, if you're really traditional in your ways, you're not going to get who you want because people can't come that way. Most people can't come to your school if you do it in the old-fashioned ways. So we've got to really open up that whole discussion and think about there's wonderful new technology. We're not going to be in an online program. That's right. But how do we harness technology to what we do is going to be a great discussion, and structures. So I think that. The other thing is interdisciplinarity, which if you wrote our elevators, which we're working today, you'll see that Edwin and I are actually going to teach a course that we've opened to a bunch of graduate students, and I'm hoping that's going to be the connection to undergrad. I think I serve on the Strategic Planning Committee, which is it honors, I think, and respects, and I think for good reason, liberal arts education. Yes. But it's also true that almost nobody finishes after 4 years anymore, that there's got to be something after it in some kind of other study. So the connection between the professional schools and the undergraduate liberal arts program can be just fabulous if it connects around such things as cultural competence. So I think, again, Tony's analogy of just, we are cooking now. So.
Okay, so just briefly, in public health, we have undergraduate master's.
Yes.
There. It's a battery.
Battery? Okay. Well, so we have undergraduate masters and I'll just stand over there. Doctoral curriculum, and we're always talking about curriculum. I remember a year ago we were working for 2 years on revising our master's curriculum, and one of our colleagues said, well, when we're done with this curriculum, and I started laughing because curriculum is never done. It's never done, because if you at all want to be relevant and dynamic, you can't do it and put it to bed. And that's the wonderful thing here, is that I just feel there is a tremendous commitment to having our curriculum always be the best and the most relevant that it can be. So just very briefly, we're doing a few things now. First of all, we're totally relooking at our undergraduate curriculum in community health education, and I think we're going to be revising that in the coming year. So that's very exciting, because this is sort of the entry-level person into the world of public health and human service. Many of those folks do go on for higher education, but for many people, that is their final degree, and they get jobs in a wide range of fields. And so we've worked with a lot of community groups to identify, what are the jobs they're getting and what skills do they need, and for those that do want to go on, what are the different levels of skills to develop as they continue. At the master's level, I would say the biggest area of focus now is between this intersection of classroom and field. And so we are in the midst of totally revamping that nexus and putting together a process that's going to start from the day students come into the master's program, where they learn to do ongoing assessment and portfolio development at each step along the way, looking at where they are now, where they want to get, how what they're learning in the classroom and what they're doing in the field is helping them achieve those goals. So that's a big project. It's going to probably take a while, but there's a tremendous energy and commitment on that level. And at the doctoral level, a major focus of the doctoral program is to create the next generation of public health leaders who are not only going to be stellar researchers, but stellar practitioners, and be at the forefront of leading agencies and policy change. And so a major part of that curriculum is leadership development through case study and personal experience, having people work in organizations with the goal of documenting and analyzing their impact on organizational change. So we're very much committed to this. Curriculum is never done, and thank God for that.
I just want to speak for the undergraduate level because it's not here. I agree that part of what will instill cultural competence in our students is changing pedagogy, curriculum, scheduling to suit student needs. But it's also to promote, and indeed, someday we may have in our general education curriculum goals. And again, I need your leadership and help. Goals for the culturally competent citizen of the 21st century. Beyond that, we are considering how to strengthen foreign language study. Hunter is the proud foreign language college of CUNY. We have broader and deeper offerings than any other CUNY school, and we're proud of that. So how do we support foreign language study? Adding, I got calls just this week for Portuguese and Korean in our curriculum, and very compelling ones. We have a strong Arabic program, and Arabic is developing a major. We are considering how world literature might substitute for some English, for some courses in English literature in general education. A major challenge for us, this is difficult, we haven't figured it out yet, is how to improve and deepen study abroad programming. Many of our students can't afford to go on study abroad, to take advantage of those opportunities. But those can be the transformative experiences of a student's life, especially if they take study abroad in their major. And in fact, if any of you have ideas about how we could raise money for this, I'm all ears. When our nursing students go to the Dominican Republic for 3 weeks to work in clinics and help set them up, that is often the direction-setting event of their lives. They want to be nurses more. They want to go back to the Dominican Republic or somewhere else and replicate and extend this work. This is education at its best. We don't do this in a huge way all the time, but we need to. We need to do study abroad in the professions. Our students need to have a global perspective. I mean, the world, our deans talk about, in each in their own way, about the urban focus. Well, the world is urbanizing. 75%, very soon, 75% of the world's population will live in metropolitan areas. Again, New York can be a leader, but our students need to go to other cities, and so those are some of the thoughts on the undergraduate level.